The ceremonial hall of Corvier Prime shimmered with crystalline arches and banners woven from metallic fibers, each strand glinting under the cold light of the great chamber. Alien nobles lounged on thrones of carved obsidian, their eyes glittering with contempt as the human delegation was ushered forward. Humanity had been allowed into the Empire's seat not as equals but as a spectacle, curiosities from a world still dismissed as provincial. Ambassador Eric Vaynar walked with dignity despite the weight pressing against him. His silver hair, streaked with the toll of decades, framed sharp eyes that held no fear. By his side, his son Cale marched in the uniform of Earth's Navy, jaw clenched, every muscle braced against the suffocating arrogance that radiated from the gathered overlords. He had been warned to remain silent, to observe, but anger already gnawed at him. Lord Varix Thulker reclined on the central throne, tall and skeletal, armored plates gleaming like polished stone. His voice carried without effort, cruel and resonant. "Ambassador of Earth," he drawled, "you speak for a race that dares call itself interstellar yet brings ships that resemble scavenger craft. Why should the Corvier Dominion treat with insects?" A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. The humans were surrounded, guards armed with energy lances stationed along every column. Cale's fingers itched toward his sidearm, but his father extended a subtle hand to still him. Ambassador Vaynar bowed slightly, controlled and calm. "Because insects, Lord Thulker, survive by outlasting predators. Humanity seeks peace, trade, and coexistence. We ask only respect for sovereignty." The words, steady as stone, carried into the vaulted space. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Then Varix leaned forward, lips curling. "Respect? You demand respect?" His taloned hand clamped onto the armrest. "Your kind grovels at our gates, begging entry into the galactic order. Respect is earned, not requested." Cale's throat tightened, but he forced stillness. His father's calm had always been his compass. Yet here, under alien stares, something darker flickered, mockery sharpened into deliberate humiliation. A minor noble rose, voice loud and dripping venom. "The human dares to call predators equal! An outrage to our honor!" The accusation was rehearsed. Cale saw it in the noble's smirk. The overlords had staged this spectacle. Varix's gaze hardened. "Eric Vaynar, by speaking such insolence within these halls, you insult the Dominion. Justice demands retribution." Cale stepped forward instinctively. "My father has spoken no insult. This is a farce." Gasps cut through the chamber. Guards raised weapons, their lances humming. Ambassador Vaynar turned sharply, his voice low and commanding. "Cale, stand down." His son froze, fury burning under his skin. He looked into his father's eyes, steady, sorrowful, resolute. Lord Varix rose to his full height, cloak cascading like molten metal. "By decree of the Strategos, punishment is death." Before Cale could move, Varix's clawed hand lashed outward. Energy flared, searing light cutting through the ambassador's chest. Eric Vaynar collapsed, the smell of scorched flesh filling the chamber. Cale's world shattered. His father lay motionless on the polished floor, crimson spreading like ink across crystal. For a moment, there was only silence. Then laughter, rich, cruel, echoing off every wall. Guards restrained Cale as he lunged, dragging him back with electrified grips. He struggled, teeth bared, voice raw. "You murderers! He came for peace!" Varix looked down with cold amusement. "And he found truth. Let this be a lesson. Humans exist at our mercy." The nobles applauded. Some jeered. Others whispered, already dismissing the dead man as nothing more than another demonstration of dominance. Cale's vision blurred with rage. His father's still face seared itself into his memory, not as a diplomat but as a martyr. When the guards released him hours later, he left the chamber hollow, every step carrying him deeper into a vow that crystallized like iron. The transport back to Earth was silent. Diplomats stared at their hands, ashamed, unwilling to meet Cale's eyes. Not one dared speak against the Empire's brutality. Fear ruled them more than honor. At the capital, Earth's leaders gathered behind polished tables, expressions heavy but cowardly. The chairman of the council spoke with forced solemnity. Commander Vaynar, your father's sacrifice is regrettable. But humanity cannot afford war with the Overlords. Retaliation would doom us all. Kale's fists tightened. He was executed in cold blood. If we do nothing, we are already doomed. Another counselor leaned forward, voice clipped. Your conduct on Corvier Prime was reckless. You defied protocol. Such behavior endangers delicate negotiations. Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty. The words struck like a hammer, but Kale did not flinch. His voice was low, steady, and dangerous. You've chosen submission over dignity. I will not. They dismissed him as if he were a child throwing tantrums. He walked out without looking back, every thread binding him to Earth's chains cut clean. That night, alone in his quarters, Kale laid his father's insignia on the table. The silver crest reflected the dim light, a reminder of the man who had believed in peace even when surrounded by predators. Kale whispered into the silence. They think this ends with his death. They think we will crawl back to the shadows. They're wrong. His reflection in the viewport showed a man transformed. The grief had not broken him, it had hardened him into something new, something the Overlords could not imagine. He was no longer an officer bound by orders, nor a son left powerless. He was a weapon forged by loss. 3 weeks later, Kale disappeared. Rumors spread, some said he had taken his own life, others whispered he'd fled into exile. The truth was far more dangerous. Among the sprawling scrapyards orbiting Titan, where derelict ships and forgotten weapons drifted in silence, a new purpose took root. The outcasts of Earth's wars, the disillusioned mercenaries, the smugglers cast aside by governments, all were drawn to the man who spoke with a fire none could ignore. Kale's voice carried through smoke-filled hangars and freezing docks. The Overlords believe they crushed us today. But every empire falls. Every predator bleeds. And I swear to you, by my father's blood, they will remember the name of humanity. The crowd answered with grim approval. He had given them not promises but vengeance. Kale looked at the star maps projected before him, tracing lines to the Empire's heart. His hand hovered over Corvier Prime. In his eyes burned a fire that no Overlord could extinguish. The vow was complete. The war had not begun in Earth's halls of power or in the alien court of marble and steel. It had begun here, in the heart of one man, bound by loss and sharpened into resolve. And the galaxy, though it did not yet know it, would soon tremble. The scrapyards above Titan stretched endlessly, a graveyard of forgotten fleets. Hulks of cruisers drifted in the dark, their broken hulls illuminated by faint beacons and the glow of welding torches. It was a realm of scavengers, smugglers, and exiles, a place where law had long since been replaced by barter, loyalty, and survival. For Kale Vaynar, it was the perfect crucible. He stood at the edge of a derelict hangar, surveying the skeletal remains of a warship suspended outside. Its frame was gutted, stripped by scavengers decades earlier, yet Kale saw potential. To others, it was a corpse. To him, it was a foundation. Commander, rasped a scarred veteran named Rourke, once an Earth Navy gunner, now a mercenary. That thing's more holes than hull. What do you expect to build with it? Kale's eyes never left the wreck. A weapon they'll never see coming. Rourke grunted, then spat into the dust. You sound like a man ready to pick a fight with gods. You sure your rage isn't making you stupid? Kale turned sharply, his gaze cold enough to cut steel. The Overlords murdered my father to show us our place. I'll show them theirs. Rourke studied him for a long moment, then gave a crooked smile. Good answer. I'll follow you. But don't expect mercy from men like me. We're here for blood and coin. Then you'll have both, Kale said, and the deal was sealed. Days blurred into weeks as Kale forged his vision. He drew recruits from the edges of human space, exiled pilots, smugglers dodging warrants, engineers who had once worked for Earth's Navy and now lived in exile. Even a handful of alien outcasts, slaves who had escaped Dominion cruelty, joined under his banner. What bound them was not honor or loyalty to Earth but the pull of Kale's relentless conviction. He worked among them, never issuing commands he would not carry out himself. Welding beams, sealing breaches, and calibrating power cores, he moved through the hangars like a man possessed. Sleep was short, meals forgotten. His fire infected the others. Broken ships began to breathe again, patched hulls glowing with renewed energy. At night, Cale would retreat to a quiet chamber, staring at the insignia that had belonged to his father. The silver crest reminded him of the cost already paid. His whisper would echo against cold metal walls. "I will not fail you!" The first true strike came 6 months later. Cale's fleet, still small and unpolished, waited in the shadows of a derelict mining station near the border of Dominion space. Word had come of an Overlord patrol convoy, 2 frigates, a supply ship, and a handful of escorts. It should have been routine. For Cale, it was a beginning. The crew gathered in the command deck of the flagship Vigil's End, a reconstructed destroyer with scars still visible along its hull. Screens flickered, showing the convoy drifting into range. Rourke smirked as he tightened his harness. "They won't even bother raising shields. They think no one out here's mad enough to touch them." Cale's voice was steady. "Then let's be mad." Engines flared. The Vigil's End and its escorts lunged from the asteroid field, cannons erupting in a storm of fire. The first frigate disintegrated in seconds, its reactor igniting like a miniature sun. The supply ship attempted to flee, only to be gutted by a concentrated volley. The Dominion escorts fought desperately, but Cale's tactics were ruthless. He anticipated every maneuver, striking from angles they could not defend. Within minutes, silence fell across the battlefield. Only wreckage remained, drifting in the void. Breathless, the crew stared at the devastation. Some laughed in disbelief, others sat stunned. Rourke broke the silence. "By the stars, you weren't bluffing." Cale looked at the ruined ships, his expression carved from stone. This was nothing. This was only the first cut. News traveled faster than ships. Within weeks, whispers spread across the border worlds, of a human commander striking at Dominion patrols, leaving none alive. Smugglers spoke of the Ghost Fleet, raiders who fought with impossible precision. In the slums of alien colonies, slaves whispered of vengeance rising from Earth. But in the gilded halls of Corvée Prime, the reports were treated with disdain. Lord Varric Stolker read the accounts with a sneer. "A mercenary pest," he said to his court. "A single man playing at war. Send hunters. Crush him quietly." An aide, younger and less arrogant, shifted uneasily. "My lord, the attacks grow bolder. Convoys hesitate to travel." Varric cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Enough. Do not dignify vermin with fear." The court laughed in agreement. Their arrogance was their shield, and it blinded them. Back in the scrapyards, Cale prepared for the next phase. In a cavernous chamber deep within an asteroid, his engineers revealed a project that had consumed months of work. The floor trembled as massive conduits powered up. From the shadows emerged the barrel of a weapon long thought extinct, an orbital cannon, salvaged from the wreckage of old wars. Its plating was blackened, but its core hummed with resurrected power. The crew stared, awe and dread mixing in their faces. Rourke muttered, "Stars help us. That thing could split a cruiser in half." Cale stepped forward, hand resting on the cold metal. "It will do more than that. This cannon is the blade. We will wield it." A young pilot named Marin swallowed nervously. "Commander, if the Dominion finds out we've built this, they'll send fleets." "They will," Cale admitted. His eyes were unyielding. "And we'll be ready." He turned to the gathered crew, voice rising. "The Overlords believe fear keeps us in chains. But fear can cut both ways. Tonight, we sharpen it into a weapon. They murdered my father to make humanity bow. Instead, they have given us reason to rise." The hangar erupted with cheers and war cries. The mercenaries, exiles, and outcasts were no longer fragments of broken lives. They were soldiers of vengeance. Cale stood above them, his silhouette framed against the towering cannon. For the first time since Corvée Prime, he allowed himself the faintest flicker of satisfaction. The path was set. The Dominion had not crushed humanity. It had awakened something far worse. The Dominion convoys burned one after another, their wreckage drifting like tombstones across forgotten sectors. Every strike widened the wound, and every survivor carried whispers of the human specter who hunted them. To the oppressed, Kale Vaynar became a symbol of resistance. To the overlords, he was a rumor too dangerous to acknowledge. But rumors have a way of turning into storms. Kale stood at the command table of the Vigil's end, maps and sensor sweeps casting pale light across his scarred features. His fleet had grown, no longer scavengers and patched hulls, but a force forged through survival. The orbital cannon, hidden deep within an asteroid belt, now loomed as his deadliest asset. Dominion patrols are pulling back, reported Marin, her voice sharp with disbelief. They're avoiding half the trade routes. Rourke leaned back in his chair with a grim chuckle. Imagine that. Gods afraid of ghosts. Kale's gaze hardened. Fear is a weapon. We'll drive it into their hearts until they bleed. On Corvier Prime, Lord Varric Stolker finally lost patience. Reports of destroyed fleets filled his court, and whispers of slave uprisings spread like fire. Pride would no longer allow silence. Enough of this farce. Varric thundered, slamming a clawed fist into his throne. This human dares strike at the Dominion, and you bring me excuses. Generals bowed, fearful. One ventured a reply. The raiders anticipate our traps, my lord. Their leader is cunning. Cunning? Varric spat the word like venom. He is nothing but a mercenary with delusions of grandeur. Ready my flagship. I will crush this pest myself. The court roared approval, blind to the seeds of their downfall. Kale's scouts intercepted the transmission. The Strategos was coming. In the war room, silence hung heavy as Kale revealed the news. Varric will command the fleet himself. This is our chance. Marin's brow furrowed. Commander, his forces will dwarf ours. Even with the cannon. Kale cut her off, voice steady. He believes numbers will save him. He doesn't understand that arrogance is his weakness. Rourke grinned wolfishly. So we bleed them dry before they even see us. Kale nodded. We lead him into the nebula fields. His sensors will fail, his ships will choke in the storms. We strike with precision. And when he thinks he's won, we show him what vengeance looks like. The trap was set. Varric's fleet surged into the nebula, gleaming warships cutting through clouds of ionized gas. Lightning arced across colossal hulls as the Strategos barked orders, his voice echoing through command relays. Drive them out! Leave nothing but ashes! But the nebula belonged to Kale. Hidden mines detonated, ripping apart escorts. Ambush wings struck from the mist, vanishing before counterfire could lock on. The Dominion's numerical advantage crumbled in chaos, discipline unraveling under phantom attacks. From the Vigil's end, Kale gave precise commands, his voice like iron. Strike flank 3. Cut their thrusters. Don't destroy, cripple. One by one, Dominion ships drifted helpless, systems shorting under the storm. Kale's fleet moved like hunters circling prey, conserving strength for the kill. When Varric finally realized the trap, his fury shook the flagship. Cowards! Show yourselves and face us openly! Kale's reply came across the comms, cold and steady. You murdered my father in the open. You'll die in the shadows. The Overlord roared in rage, but it was too late. Kale gave the order. Bring the cannon online. Deep within the asteroid belt, the resurrected weapon awoke. Energy surged through conduits, power building until the void trembled. The first shot tore through a Dominion battleship, splitting it into incandescent fragments. The second gutted a cruiser, fire spilling into the nebula. Panic spread. The Overlords had never known fear like this. Hours later, silence fell. Wreckage filled the nebula, Dominion vessels shattered, drifting without power. Only the flagship remained, shields flickering, hull bleeding atmosphere. Kale stood at the viewport, eyes locked on the crippled Titan. Prepare boarding parties. Rourke raised a brow. Going in yourself? Kale's voice left no room for debate. This ends with me. The throne chamber of the Dominion flagship loomed vast, gilded walls scarred by battle tremors. Guards lay fallen, their weapons useless against Kale's relentless advance. At the far end, Lord Varric Stolker waited, armor cracked, cloak torn yet eyes still burning with pride. You dare invade my ship? Varric's voice thundered, carrying the weight of centuries of conquest. You are but one man. Kale stepped closer, blade drawn, visor reflecting the dying lights of the chamber. One man is enough when vengeance drives him. Varric bared fangs, leaping with surprising speed. Claws clashed against steel, sparks flying as the two collided. The Strategos was strong, centuries of war behind him, but Kale fought with precision born of fury. Every strike was measured, every parry deliberate. Blow after blow, Kale drove him back. Their clash echoed through the chamber, steel against claw, rage against resolve. Finally, Kale seized an opening, driving his blade deep into Varric's chest. The Overlord staggered, disbelief etched across his face. Kale's voice was a whisper of steel. You executed my father to make humanity bow. Today, humanity stands over you. With one final thrust, Varric fell. Kale activated the ship's broadcast relays, forcing his image across Dominion networks. His words spread to every corner of the Empire. This is vengeance. The Dominion is not invincible. Remember this day, not as the death of one man, but as the birth of humanity's wrath. He stood over the body of the Strategos, the galaxy watching, silence heavy with realization. Then he cut the feed. When Kale returned to the vigil's end, the crew erupted in cheers. Outcasts, mercenaries, and freed slaves, all raised their voices, bound by a victory none had believed possible. Rourke slapped his shoulder with a grin. Well, Commander, looks like you just carved our names into history. Kale's gaze lingered on the stars beyond the viewport. His voice was quiet, but it carried. History will remember vengeance. Let them fear it. In the days that followed, the Dominion faltered. Fleets hesitated to leave port, nobles whispered of rebellion, and enslaved worlds stirred with defiance. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of an overlord, not to armies or nations, but to a single human's relentless fury. Kale Vanar vanished soon after, slipping into the void with his fleet. To some, he became a ghost. To others, a legend whispered in the shadows of occupied worlds. But one truth endured, etched into every memory. The Overlords had killed the Diplomat to remind humanity of its place. In return, humanity gave them a nightmare that would never fade.